They put him in handcuffs while the little girl he just saved watched from inside his vest.
Next time you
And
don't
when the
do
mother
that to people.
finally screamed the truth, the entire town realized they'd been seconds away from destroying the only angel on that highway. What happened next will shatter you. The windshield wipers couldn't keep up. Gladys's knuckles were bone white on the steering wheel as the Oregon highway disappeared behind a wall of rain so thick it looked solid. The smell of wet asphalt and burning brake pads filled the car. In the back seat, 6-year-old Tiffany clutched her stuffed rabbit, her voice barely a whisper over the storm hammering the roof. "Mommy, I'm scared." "I know, baby. We're almost." The tires lost their grip. It happened so fast Gladys didn't even have time to scream. The car spun like a carnival ride, hurling them sideways across 2 lanes. When the world finally stopped spinning, they were facing the wrong way. Dead center in the fast lane. Gladys's breath came in sharp, painful gasps as she fumbled for her phone, but her hands were shaking too hard to. Twin headlights exploded through the darkness. A semi-truck, barreling down on them at 70 miles per hour, its horn blaring a death sentence. The driver was hitting his brakes. She could see the smoke from the tires, but physics didn't care. The rig was a runaway freight train, and they were tied to the tracks. Tiffany screamed. Gladys threw her arm across her daughter's chest, a useless, desperate gesture. This was it. This was how they. A roar split the night. Not the truck. Something else. Something primal and mechanical and impossibly close. Through the rain-streaked window, Gladys caught a flash of chrome and leather. A motorcycle, a massive Harley, cut across 3 lanes like a bullet, its single headlight slicing through the downpour. The rider didn't brake. He turned the handlebars hard right and dropped the bike. The screech of metal on wet asphalt was like a dying animal, sparks exploding as 800 pounds of American steel slid sideways between them and the oncoming semi. The impact when the truck hit the motorcycle was deafening, a thunder crack of crushing metal that made Tiffany bury her face in her mother's arm. But the bike held. The semi jackknifed it, its trailer swinging wide, missing their car by inches. The motorcycle, or what was left of it, lay twisted in the middle of the highway, still smoking. Gladys couldn't breathe, couldn't process what had just happened. Then she saw him. Through the rain and the flashing hazard lights, a massive silhouette rose from the wreckage. The rider. He was limping, his left arm hanging wrong, but he was moving toward them, toward the car. Gladys's hand found the door lock, her survival instinct screaming one word, "Run." But before she could move, his face appeared in her window. And that's when everything changed. His eyes were wrong. That was Gladys's first thought when the biker's face appeared in her rain-streaked window. Not wild, not angry, just concerned. Deep lines carved in his sun-weathered skin, and a thick gray beard plastered against his jaw, dripping. He was massive, shoulders that belonged on a linebacker, but his voice came out soft, almost apologetic. "Mom? You hurt?" Gladys couldn't speak. Her throat had closed up. Behind her, Tiffany made a small sound, and the man's eyes immediately shifted to the back seat. His whole face changed, softened. The rain was coming down harder now, drumming on the roof like scattered coins, and he squinted through the glass. "The little one okay?" That broke the spell. Gladys's maternal instinct kicked in, shoving aside her fear. She twisted in her seat, checking Tiffany for blood, for broken bones, for, "Mommy, look." Tiffany's voice was quiet but steady, her small finger pointing at the window. "His beard is all sparkly." Gladys froze. Looked back. The rain had caught in the man's gray beard, each droplet reflecting the red and blue swirl of the hazard lights. It looked sparkly, like Christmas lights tangled in tinsel. Like Santa Claus on his sleigh, Tiffany whispered. The corner of the man's mouth twitched, not quite a smile, but close. He gave a slight nod, then winced, his left arm pulling tight against his ribs. Road rash covered his shoulder, angry and bleeding. But he didn't step away. Instead, he opened the back door, the hinges groaning, and squatted down to Tiffany's level. The smell of leather and motor oil filled the car. "You're a brave girl," he said, his voice like gravel wrapped in velvet. "What's your name?" "Tiffany." "Tiffany. That's real pretty." He glanced at Gladys, seeking permission, then reached out one massive, scarred hand. Tiffany, without hesitation, placed her tiny palm in his. "I'm William." That's when Gladys noticed Tiffany was shaking. Not from fear, from cold. The adrenaline crash was hitting, and the rain had soaked through the door seals. William saw it too. Without a word, he reached behind his neck and pulled his leather vest over his head, grimacing as the movement aggravated his injuries. "Here you go, darling." As he draped the heavy vest around Tiffany's shoulders, it fell open for just a second. Gladys caught a glimpse of the inside lining, worn, soft, broken in from years on the road. And there, stitched directly over where his heart would be, was a small, faded teddy bear patch. Hand-sewn, the stitching was crude but careful. Someone had loved him enough to put that there. Or maybe he'd put it there himself. Before Gladys could process what that meant, a new sound cut through the rain. Sirens. And William's whole body went rigid. The cruiser's lights painted everything red and blue. Sheriff Brody stepped out into the rain, one hand already on his baton, the other on his radio. He'd been a cop in Eagle Point for 23 years, and he knew trouble when he saw it. Wrecked car, crying kid, and a leather-clad biker built like a goddamn grizzly bear, hovering over a terrified mother. The pieces fit too well. "Step away from the vehicle." Brody's voice cut through the storm like a blade. "Hands where I can see them." William didn't move fast enough. His injured arm was making everything slow, deliberate. To Brody, it looked like resistance, like a threat calculating his next move. "I said now." William's eyes flicked to Tiffany, still wrapped in his vest, still shaking, and something in his face changed. Resigned. He raised his hands, palms out, and took one step back from the car. The rain was coming down in sheets now, turning the asphalt into a black mirror reflecting the chaos. "On your knees. Hand behind your back." Gladys felt her stomach drop. "Wait, no, you don't." "Ma'am, stay in the vehicle." Brody's baton was out now, a 3-foot length of polished hickory that had cracked more than one skull in this county. "Sir, I will not ask again." "Knees. Now." William looked at the sheriff, then at Tiffany. The little girl's eyes were wide, her small hands clutching the leather vest. She was scared, not of William, of the man with the badge and the stick. William's jaw tightened. He'd been here before, knew how this went. Fight back, and the kid sees violence. Comply, and maybe everyone walks away. He dropped to his knees. The sound of him hitting the wet pavement was heavy, final, like a door slamming shut. Brody moved in fast, yanking William's arms behind his back. The biker didn't resist, didn't say a word, even when the cuffs bit into his wrists. Even when Brody's knee pressed into his spine, forcing his face toward the ground. "You're under arrest for..." "No." The scream came from somewhere primal, somewhere Gladys didn't know she had. She was out of the car before she realized she'd moved, rain soaking through her clothes in seconds, her hands balled into fists. "Stop! What are you doing?" Brody's head snapped up, his hand moving instinctively to his gun. "Ma'am, get back in the—" "He saved U.S." Gladys's voice cracked, broke, then came back stronger, louder, fury and desperation braided together. "He saved my daughter." The words hung in the air, and Sheriff Brody's hand froze on his holster. Brody's world tilted. "He saved my daughter." The words ricocheted through his skull, bouncing off every assumption he'd made in the last 60 seconds. His eyes darted from Gladys's tear-streaked face to the scene he thought he'd understood. The wrecked motorcycle wasn't crashed. It was placed, deliberately, between the family and the semi. He could see the gouges in the asphalt now, the intentional slide marks. His gaze moved to William, still kneeling in the rain, head bowed. Silent. Accepting. The man's left shoulder was shredded, blood mixing with rainwater, running down his arm in pink rivulets. And there, wrapped around the little girl still sitting in the car, was the biker's vest. Inside out, the lining exposed. Brody's throat tightened. He'd arrested a hero. The realization hit him like a sucker punch to the gut. 23 years wearing the badge, and he'd just cuffed a man who'd thrown himself in front of a semi to save a child. The shame was physical, hot and acidic, crawling up his chest. "So—" William didn't look up. Brody's knees hit the wet pavement with a dull thud. He was eye level with the biker now, close enough to see the old scars on William's knuckles, the crow's feet around his eyes, the exhaustion etched into every line of his face. Close enough to see him flinch when Brody reached for the cuffs. "I am so sorry." Brody's voice cracked on the last word. His hands were shaking as he fumbled with the key, the mechanism clicking open with a sound that felt like a prison door swinging wide. The cuffs fell away, and William finally raised his head. Their eyes met. No anger there. No bitterness. Just tired. "You were doing your job," William said quietly. "No." Brody shook his head. "I was doing it wrong." He stood, water streaming off his uniform, and grabbed the first aid kit from his cruiser. When he came back, William was trying to stand, favoring his injured side. Brody put a hand on his shoulder, gently, carefully, and guided him back down. "Stay put. I'm fine. You're bleeding all over my highway." Brody popped open the kit, pulling out gauze and antiseptic. "The least I can do is patch up the man who did my job for me tonight." The alcohol wipe stung. William didn't make a sound, but his jaw tightened. Brody worked quickly, cleaning the road rash with practiced efficiency, his hand steady now. Purposeful. This wasn't just first aid, it was penance. Every press of gauze, every strip of medical tape, was an apology his words couldn't carry. Behind them, headlights cut through the rain. A tow truck, and behind it, 3 more vehicles. Word had spread fast in a small town. As the engines shut off one by one, doors started opening. Brody looked up from William's bandaged shoulder and felt his stomach drop. The whole damn town was here, and they'd all seen what he'd done. The smell of bacon and diesel filled Peggy's place. By sunrise, the whole town of Eagle Point knew. William sat alone in a corner booth, his bandaged shoulder stiff under a borrowed shirt. He'd spent the night at the mechanic's shop, Gus refusing to let him leave until the swelling went down. Now, nursing bitter coffee, he just wanted to get on the road. Forget last night ever happened. Then the door chimed. Sheriff Brody walked in first, hat in hand. Behind him came Gus, Peggy the waitress, the deputy, the pharmacist, old man Tucker from the hardware store. A dozen townspeople, maybe more, filing in until the diner was packed shoulder to shoulder. Brody set a thick envelope on the table. "Cash. Lots of it. For the bike," Brody said simply. William stared at it, shook his head. I can't. You can, and you will. Gus crossed his arms. That Harley saved 2 lives. We're replacing her. No arguments. William's throat went tight. He'd ridden alone for 15 years. Didn't know how to accept this kind of kindness. His hand moved toward the envelope, but before he could touch it, a small voice cut through the crowd. William! Tiffany burst through the wall of adults, still wearing his leather vest, oversized, dragging on the floor behind her like a cape. In her hands was a paper napkin covered in crayon. A giant biker with a sparkly beard. A little girl in a red dress. Both holding hands under a yellow sun. This is for your vest pocket, she said, holding it up like an offering. So you don't get lonely. The diner went silent. William took the napkin with trembling hands, his vision blurring. He carefully folded it and tucked it into his inner pocket, right next to the teddy bear patch. Then he did something he hadn't done in 15 years. He lifted Tiffany onto his knee and let her keep the vest. It's yours now, little darling, he said, his voice rough. Your family. Outside, 36 motorcycles fired up in unison. The local club come to escort him home. The girl who'd been frozen in terror was now grinning on a giant's lap, wrapped in leather and belonging. Blood makes you related, but sacrifice makes you family. If you believe that true heroes are judged by their actions, not their appearance, and that one act of sacrifice can change everything, like and share this story. Subscribe now for more stories like this that will restore your faith in humanity. Also check out the 2 videos showing on the screen right now, specially crafted for you.